let's go to football, Martin. A lot of our attention will begin turning there now that the NBA season is over. You still got the draft and free agency, but obviously football, isn't as far away as we think. And it was an interesting article on CBS Sports today, Martin. Here's the title of it. Some NFL owners discussing potential QB salary cap in wake of escalating market, per report. That's a report. There's a report that said some of the owners, Martin, are discussing this. It hadn't gained a lot of traction yet, but some owners are thinking, man, should we look at trying to put a salary cap on, or, like a max cap like they have in the NBA on the quarterbacks, because their salaries keep going up, Martin, and it's eating up bigger and bigger chunks of the salary cap for the actual teams. And at first I was like, look, if I'm the NFL and I don't have a cap, or, they do have a salary cap, but there's no cap on how much players can get individually, then if I'm a player, I'm not trying to have that. All right? Because in the NBA, yes, the players are making tons of money. But I remember a day, Martin, and you're young. You might not have even really been into sports, as far as covering it, when there was no max salary. Michael Jordan's last year with the Chicago Bulls, his last 2 years, Martin, second to last year, he made $30 million, which at that time, 1997, was unheard of. And in 98, he made $33 million because it was kind of like they're making up for him being underpaid his previous years.
Right.
But that was way above what anybody else was getting because there was no max limit. And now a max salary is a part of the basketball landscape, and we all just kind of are used to it and accept it. Now, as I thought more about it, though, Martin, I said, because Rob and I, you've heard us, we've talked about, man, pay the player, not the position. Saquon Barkley is better than Daniel Jones. We get it that the quarterback position is more important. But people in the stands, which are paying the bills, are going to see Saquon, not Danny Jones. All right? And Saquon does his job at a higher level than Daniel Jones.
Sure.
He can't make a fourth of what Daniel Jones gets? I mean, really. And so I think this would actually help the other players. It's not even a question of whether it would. It definitely would. It would give more money to the other positions. And Martin, I think you played football, right?
No, I never did.
Okay, I played football through high school. And you don't have to play it to know. Man, even though the quarterback is the most important position, it ain't that much, more work than the other positions. Right. I mean, these other dudes and the line, on the defensive line, the linebackers, the running back, like, they are taking shots, hits all the time. And so I actually think this might be a good thing. Not to disparage quarterbacks. They still will be the highest paid, but to allow the other players to get more. And quickly before you go, the Cowboys are in a quandary because Dak Prescott is going to get about $60 million a year. And if they pay Dak and they pay CeeDee Lamb and they pay Micah Parsons what they're worth on the open market, they're not really going to be able to field a competitive team around those three. They would each be getting, this is according to a great article on ESPN today by Bill Barnwell, each of those three would be getting more than 12% of the cap, each by himself. Right. Could be, almost over 40% of the cap would be going to those three players. In recent years, there's only been two teams that had three players getting even 10% of the cap individually, and those two teams didn't have winning records. It's hard to build a squad when you got three dudes, and mainly the quarterback, making so much money. And so I don't hate this. I don't want to limit money on players, but it's already limited because there is a cap. This would just balance it out a little more where the quarterbacks don't get all of it, so to speak.
Yeah, I'm out on this idea. And here's the reason why. Like, there's going to be a nadir at some point where quarterbacks are not. I mean, I don't think we'll see a $70 million quarterback, for example. I don't think we'll see that.
Why
I don't
not?
think so. Because at a certain point, you have to build your team. You have to build your team around these guys, right? So if you look at a guy like, and also you have to be smart about the way that you sign your quarterbacks to extensions. Like, I think the Trevor Lawrence extension was a good idea because when you look at it, I know it's a big number, $53 million per year, but when you actually take the last years of his rookie deal and spread it out over that entire time, it's not nearly as much. But if you don't have the guy, then don't pay him like he is the guy.
There was an article today, quickly, and you may have seen it, saying, well, Grant Cohn from Sports Illustrated said that the Niners may end up paying Brock Purdy next year $65 million a year. If he gets 65, somebody getting 70.
Well, if he gets 65, then I think that's absurd. Like flatly, I think that's just a bad way to try to
What if he
build
leads
your
them
team.
to the Super Bowl this year? Like a win.
I still wouldn't. I'm not paying Brock Purdy $65 million to be my quarterback for 5 years. I can't.
He's done way more than Trevor Lawrence so far.
Look, I don't want to start another Prince that was promised debate on all of this. But the thing about Trevor, the thing that it's not about to me the massive amount of money because it is an eye-popping extension, but it is that an extension. So he'll be there for the next 7 years instead of just the 5. Like, what is if you don't have the quarterback, then don't pay him. Like, if you don't think, like the Minnesota Vikings, they did not think that Kirk Cousins was the guy anymore. They had every opportunity to extend him, to write him a new contract up and all of that, and instead he actually went to the Falcons, right? The same way, hell, the Washington Commanders, back when they weren't the Commanders, they didn't think Kirk Cousins was a guy either. They franchise tagged him, and let him walk in free agency. If you don't think you have the guy, then don't pay the guy. And
you are right, Martin, in that a big part of this, and we were talking about it yesterday with the NBA owners, a lot of this is the owners trying to put things in place to protect them from themselves.
Exactly.
So I will give you that, but I thought about that too, and that's why I didn't like it initially. But then, you know what else I thought about? I said, even if that's the case, guess who it would help? The Saquon Barkleys of the world, the Derrick Henrys of the world, who can't get more than $10 million a year. You know what I'm saying? Like, the money, the cap would still be what it is. It would just keep quarterbacks from getting so much of the cap. And so that money wouldn't stay in the owner's pockets. That money would go to other players at other positions. That's why I like it. But you're making a legitimate point. But when I look at the other side of this would benefit the non-quarterbacks, then I like it.
Well, okay, so that's true. But also, if you just stick with not paying the guy who you don't think is the guy, then you have the money to build a team. Like, I know everybody, or a lot of people, looked at Sean Payton in the way that he essentially just discarded Russell Wilson, right? And looked at it like, what is he doing? What does he think? He doesn't think he's the guy. So it's like, I would rather try to do this three-headed monster of Bo Nix, Zach Wilson, and Stidham, as opposed to trying to pay $85 million to Russell Wilson, because I know he's not the answer. And I think what we have seen in the NFL thus far, the solution is, if you're trying to win a Super Bowl, I think it's a great idea to have a quarterback who's an MVP level player. But if you don't have that, which, you know what, of the 32 NFL teams, probably 27 don't have that. You know what I'm saying? A quarterback who on any given year could be the MVP.
Well, Brock Purdy was fourth. I hope you included him.
Oh, my God.
He was fourth in voting. Just stating the fact. Stating the fact.
Fourth in voting. There you go.
That's all I'm doing. And they did get him to the Super Bowl and left the field with a lead. Just saying. Just saying.
Gracious, Chris Broussard. Don't do this. Don't do this.
877-99 on Fox. Your turn to weigh in. It's an interesting proposal. Again, right? This article, we're going off the article. The article is out in front because it hasn't gained a lot of traction yet. It hadn't gained a lot of steam. But do you think it's a good idea to put a max salary on quarterbacks? I wouldn't want a max salary, Martin, on other players, but a max salary on quarterbacks so that you could, they wouldn't take up so much of the cap. Be interesting. It really would.
It's just like
877-99 on 5. What are you saying?
I was just saying, like, if Dallas doesn't want to pay Dak Prescott the prerequisite 57-something million, then you should trade him. Like, you can move these assets.
But they're going to end up letting him walk. I mean,
but I'm saying, if you're in that
season,
boat, you can make a deal and make something happen, as opposed to just saying, "Oh, I have no choice. Either I pay him $60 million or I walk." Everybody in this league has some level of value, as we see with Kirk Cousins off an Achilles tendon getting 4 for $180, right, at 36 years old.